Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Desert Island Drams. I'm your host, Eddie, as hopefully most of you will know by now. Lovely to be on a new format. Hopefully you can see we're all shiny and new. Where is it? There we are. Yeah, a little bit of work has gone into this. Hopefully you can see the difference. I'm delighted that that my special guest tonight is not just a good friend and valuable member of the whiskey industry, well, the wider spirits community, but also for this evening tech support. So if anything goes wrong, he's the man. So I'm going to bring him in now. So let's say hello to Billy. Oh, yeah, there we go.
That's the right button. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Good evening.
Billy. Good evening, Billy. How are you doing?
I'm all right, just about, you know.
Yes, good. Well done. Billy, for those of you that may not recognize this man's face or what you can see of it behind that beautiful beard, is an all-round whiskey and spirits educator and a whiskey exchange ambassador. Billy's going to tell us all about who he is and how he got to being where he is. So, Billy, why don't you tell the good people all about yourself? Shameless self-promotion.
So, first. So, hello, my name is Billy Abbot. I am currently the Whisky Exchange's head of content and training. But that doesn't sound sexy, so they decided to call me the Whisky Exchange ambassador and give me business cards, and I like business cards, so that's all good. I am a computer programmer by trade, hence the being tech support for everything in the whiskey industry, because computer programmer seems to mean tech support person. So I started off doing computing. Oh, there we go.
Sorry. I'm just playing.
Play away. I started being a computer programmer in the city of London, and after 10.5 years, including a bit of time writing a blog about booze, I accidentally got a job at the Whisky Exchange writing about booze full time. Tim Forbes, of Whiskey Lounge fame on occasion, and now an exile in Italy, having run away from the UK a few years ago, taught me everything I know, and he also claims that my origin story is not as I remember. He reckons that I applied for a job and things. I don't remember any of that. So I still claim I accidentally got a job at the Whisky Exchange while trying to blag my way to some whiskey tastings. I wrote lots of stuff and put things on the website, and these days I do a little bit of everything.
Indeed you do. Indeed.
I've been around for too long. Nobody really knows what my job is anymore, or my job title, so they just make things up.
Well, Billy, I mean, it does feel like you've been around forever and a day, and that's no slight on you at all. That's not to say we're sick of the sight of you. But I do still remember the times when you and a young Jason Standing would turn up at the Red Lion on Crown Passage in London, in Mayfair, fresh-faced, innocent, and
yes.
You know, just jovial and yeah. I think back to those days with fondness.
Don't worry, my camera does strange things. There we go. It's come back again now. Lovely. There we go. Magic.
Hello.
But I still remember actually the first time I met you was at your first ever London festival.
Yeah.
When I walked up to the door and I was greeted by your dad, and then halfway through the festival, you grabbed me and said, "Are you somebody that you were looking for?" And I said no, and you went, "Oh, hello, I'm Eddie," and then ran away. And about a month later on, I turned up at one of your Red Lion tastings, and about 5 years later, I was doing tastings in the Red Lion for you. So there was a progression.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, as you well know, it's a very small industry, even though there seems to be thousands and thousands of brands and whatever else. Everyone knows everyone. Yeah. And, you know, if you put a step wrong, you're out.
We have no tolerance. for bad.
Zero tolerance. Good, but anyway,
tolerance. It's quite lucky there's a lot of tolerance actually, but it's a different matter.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be tolerance of a certain variety. Anyway, we're here obviously to talk about, among other things, your 5 of your favorite tunes and dram combinations. As in previous weeks, I say 5 of your favorite tunes and drams because, of course, it's utterly impossible to single out your actual 5 favorite drams and tunes. So it's just a kind of glimpse at what you were thinking at the time when you put this together, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I have an annoyingly eclectic taste in music, and I'm also very bad at remembering which whiskies I like. So the combination of those two things has meant that there is a slightly random selection and really tortuous connections as to why the drams pair with the music, and I apologize in advance for those.
Well, I've kind of trailed this as being a bit of a rocker's paradise, but I think the first 2 tracks are reasonably easygoing on the ears. Well, they're all relatively easygoing.
There's a ramp up and then there's a settle out. There's an abrupt spike, I would go with, yes.
Exactly. So why don't we? I'm just going to do some jiggery pokery here in the background. You can't see. So tell us about your first dram, if you will, Billy, please.
I will dig out my first dram because I actually have some of this, and it is also open. That is not the case of all of my lovely Desert Island drams. So to make sure that is actually the one. Yes, so this is a single cask from the lovely people at Bimber.
Yes.
So Bimber are my local distillery. Basically, that's the reason why I've chosen this. I really like them. I like their whiskey. It's nice stuff. They're down the road. They're like 20-minute walk away. So if I ever really get bored and want to go and look at a still, I can just go down and look at theirs. They're very nice. They let me in. I'm not allowed to touch it because of what happened last time.
They're still, you mean, yeah?
Yeah, they're still, yes. No, so this is a little while back. They did their first release of their own on their website. They've done a first release, and this bit of wood you can see at the bottom here. That's my first edition, first ever Bimber release. That's my one sat up there. But they did their first little release of their own on their website, and it sold out in about 5 minutes. It seems I'm quite good at hitting things very quickly on a keyboard, so I got one. They did 4 different ones, and I went for the bourbon single cask. And 2 or 3 days later, I got a knock on the door, and Luke, the brand ambassador, went, "Hello, Billy. Here's your whiskey." Because it's only 10 minutes around the corner, so he just drove round to say hello and drop off my whiskey. So I'm not going to say no to that. It's a 3-year-old. It is their 8th cask they filled ever. And I remember visiting them when they had maybe 20 casks on the back wall of their distillery. It's a few more casks than that these days. So.
I've only been to Bimber once. Obviously, I've spent quite a bit of time with Luke, who is a tremendous human being, but also very good at getting you into trouble.
I can believe that.
But to call it it's a distillery, but it's not a distillery as perhaps most people who have a perception of whiskey making historically would recognize, because it's utterly tiny, and you walk in under the shutters and you've got a bar and then the stills, direct fired stills. There's no spirit safe. It's just kind of
they have a little condenser out the front and a bucket underneath it, and they're quite happy.
And it's just it's almost like walking back in 200-300 years to when whiskey was first being produced, and it's just incredible that that's going on in London. It's just what's going on.
The location's really, really weird because I live in this part. This is Park Royal, northwest London, where I live, and it's the largest food production area in Europe. It's basically an industrial estate. The Whisky Exchange HQ is here as well. I live in one of the only residential streets in the entire area, and when you walk down to Bimber, opposite, they have down this tiny little road called Sunbeam Road, the most inappropriate name for a desolate street you've ever seen. It's just a street of warehouses. And the guys opposite do car repairs. And quite famously, just before their open day when they launched this whiskey up here, just the night beforehand, or the day beforehand, somebody decided to burn out a couple of cars outside. It's that sort of fun area we live in around here. So when people turned up the next day for the open sort of evening to launch the first whiskey, there was a still slightly warm, burnt out car just outside the distillery. It's an interesting part of town.
Do you think that makes any difference to the maturation? We talk about Isla and the coastal effect and so on and so forth. Or certainly the marketing guys do. Do you think the burnt out cars make any impact on the maturing spirit?
Yeah, just that little hint of petrol you get the back every bit. No. Unfortunately, Ollie Chilton, who I think was Ollie on last. I can't remember. Ollie, was he on last week? Or
I think yes, he was. Yes.
But yeah, Ollie and I have this strange sort of role, it seems, in the whiskey world. Especially him. He's taught me very much all I know about this side of things, which is to remove all romanticism and joy from whiskey. No, I think the entirety of the UK and the entirety of Scotland has a maritime climate, and I think there's very little difference in maturation anywhere. But I do reckon probably just a little hint of, we've got an Asda next door and a load of shisha lounges around here, so a little bit of peach shisha just on the edge of a sort of...
It's, forget Ollie, that's got to have an impact.
Again, we have seagulls around here, so that means we're by the sea, I'm sure.
Well, exactly.
They do.
Or they're just scrounging gets, desperate.
They're seagulls. They're scrounging gets no matter what. So.
Okay, so anyway, we need to move on to your track. So tell us about the track you're going to be choosing to pair with the Bimber, please, Billy.
Well, I was going through my random sort of music selection, and I have a particularly random and wide music selection. You almost got a load of weird techno stuff at one point in time, and I realized that doesn't work in 30-second bursts. So this is from Carter USM, who are a band that I have loved for many, many years. Even though I've been to their final gig ever 3 times. So they did it once, and it was so good they decided to do it a few more times, which is great. And this song is The Only Living Boy in New Cross, which is very much one of my favorite of their songs anyway. But I feel that this beginning section, which I've asked Aid to play, very much shows the band in their general light.
Okay, well, let's have a little listen to Carter USM, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Sex Machine, and The Only Living Boy in New Cross.
The comfort and the joy of feeling lost, with the only living boy in New Cross.
I had a ponytail in the 90s. I did not have a fringe, and I did not wear woolly hats.
I'm sure you have had a ponytail at some point.
I did have a ponytail. It was pathetic. It never particularly grew, and it's in a box in the other room if anybody ever wants to see it. It's in a box with a ransom note that when I cut it off, I made a ransom note out of a newspaper, cutting out the letters saying, "We have your son." Then send photographs of it to my mum and my dad. My dad ignored it and just wrote an email saying, "Anyway." And my mum sent me a text message all in capital letters saying, "Please send ponytail worth more than the sun on eBay." I feel this explains a lot.
It definitely goes some way to explain certain things.
But no, Carter, great band. Les and Jim Bob both do their own things these days. Jim Bob's just released a new album. I've seen him perform loads of times across London, and yeah, still performing, still fantastic. I'm not so au fait with all the lovely stuff that Les Carter's doing, but just because I have too much music and I keep on forgetting to have a listen. So, but no, they're very, very political stuff. Band went from being 2 of them in a drum machine to being lots of people, and then just sort of imploded upon itself, went back to being 2 people in a drum machine. They did lots of final gigs. Farewell. So yeah, excellent band, really good music, love it.
We've got quite a few people tuning in. Mr. Dempsey is there,
Evening, Paul.
along with Steve Tan and Mark Watt and a few other folks, including my mother-in-law, who she's probably our most dedicated viewer. Likes, will tune in. Hold on, let me just plug the computer in because it's about to die. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? There we go. Yes. So yes. Anyway, we should move on to the next question. Otherwise, we'll spiral into an abyss of drinking and chatting. And
it's happened before, you and I. We don't need that to happen again this evening on camera.
Exactly. And I think you and I have indulged in that a few times. Anyway, so next question to you, because I know you're a very tolerant kind of person.
It's worrying that people know me as this. I really need to fix that as a reputational thing.
But I need to ask you about whiskey myths, whether they be from marketing or PR or even the consumer. We've all been there when we've turned the page of a newspaper or a magazine and we've seen an ad, or we've been to a whiskey show and we've overheard something which has made us just a little smile, Riley. Is there anything particular you can remember that's really kind of done it for you?
Well, outside of the whole this whiskey's matured by the sea, it tastes of salt business, which I don't. So removing the joy and romanticism and all that sort of thing. It's normally this whole thing, and this is one of the ones that Mark, who's knocking around on the channel, always goes on about. It's this whole thing of people sort of talking about finding these incredible casks in sort of like walking around warehouses, and people found this thing hidden behind a door and everything like that. And the reason why that really annoys me is because it's a lie, apart from when it isn't. Because it does actually happen, because people were absolutely rubbish at trying to store things in various different places. But normally there's an edge of embarrassment if you're somebody who has sort of like lost a cask of really good whiskey in a warehouse and you found it hidden underneath something else. But all these myths of all these people who are walking around these darkened warehouses wearing sort of like, long coats with sticks in hand, tapping casks, and eventually finding one going, oh yes, this is a good one, rather than somebody just doing Control F in an Excel spreadsheet until they find a Klein leash of the right age. So that's my favourite marketing myth, is that whole adding onto this mystique of choosing casks and finding casks. I don't do much cask selection stuff, but every time I've done it, apart from once, I have sat in generally a cupboard of some kind, and someone has fed me whiskey, and so I've gone, that one's nice. And that is the true face of whiskey selection, rather than this whole sort of like, walking around warehouses. Apart from that one time, I did walk around a warehouse and was very good and spat all my whiskey out, which not all of my colleagues did. And speaking of the aforementioned Tim Forbes, I do have a fantastic photograph of him asleep in the party room, the big sort of event space they have at Edredale Distillery. Tim stretched out in a chair, a bottle of warm Budweiser in his hand, asleep, falling sideways of his chair, but his bottle of beer perfectly held upright so as not to spill even while asleep. So that was the one time I did actually walk around a warehouse and select casks by looking at things and touching them. So
yeah, I was about to say, I think most people have a picture of Tim Forbes asleep somewhere.
I used to have a collection, but it was because mainly one of my jobs back in the early days of both Whisky Exchange and also when Tim and I were both doing Whisky Lounge bits and pieces with you guys, I was the chief Forbes wrangler. And my job was to ensure that Tim got to the place he was meant to and didn't fall asleep on the way. Did
that come with any kind of risk premium or something? Did you get some kind of compensation for the risk involved in that?
Well, every now and again, Tim would pull out a nice thing. And one of the whiskies that's on my list later on is all his fault.
Yeah, so, I'm pretty sure I know which one.
I'm fairly certain you drank some of that one as well. So, yeah.
Well, we can
over the years.
We can talk about that as long as it's not too embarrassing, obviously. Okay, so should we move on to your next choice? So, please tell us about your next whiskey.
Yes, here we go. So this is a whiskey actually from work. This is my only whiskey from work, but it's also a whiskey that this is not a use you can use situation. This is very much a use you cannot use situation. I've got a bottle of it here as well. It is an ancient, well, not ancient, it's only 9 years old. Single Malts of Scotland bottling. I always talk about how Clynelish is my favourite distillery, but that's because if you're a whiskey geek, Clynelish is your favourite distillery. That's sort of like what you're meant to say. And back when I started at the Whisky Exchange, my first ever whiskey show, I had this on my stand that I was running with the aforementioned Forbes. And I tried this in a 1972 Clynelish. And the 1972 Clynelish, 38 years old, was only selling for 140 quid. And I bought this, which was the 28 years old version of it, which is not open and will remain closed this evening. And it's stunning. It is one of the most stunning whiskies still to this day I've ever drunk. The 72 I thought was better. Then I tried this again and realized I was wrong. This is my 6th bottle of this. I drank all but the last 2 of them significantly earlier in my whiskey career before I realized quite what I had. This is worth quite a spectacular amount of money compared to the 80 quid I paid for it, or 90 quid or something like that. And it is still up there in my top couple of whiskies of all time. And this is the one which I assured people that it was the 1972 was better repeatedly until such a time as I tried this again and then realized I was wrong.
Well, can I just tell you, Billy, that given the choice, 1972 is always better for any whiskey.
Any whiskey ever? Okay, sorry. Yeah. Unfortunately, I drank all of that one, so I bought a bottle of the 72 as well, and that one lasted me until a couple of years back. Went to Malt Stock and shared the last couple of drams with some people there. But yeah, this one is my last bottle of this now. I thought I had 2, but it turns out I drank one of them without realizing it. So
fair enough. Well, listen, you are, along with all of our guests, very much, the attitude is drink it. Drink it, drink it, drink it. The whiskey is there for one thing, and that is to be drunk, not to be saved and sold down the line.
Well, this one's being saved very specifically because it's mine and I will drink it. But I will let people know who else is allowed to drink it. So no, it's I have a large collection of things, and it really is just stuff which is there. I tried to do this whole whiskey for investment thing, but I bought things that really didn't go up in value. I made a £5 off a bottle of Kilcoman once, and that was given to me out of pity. So
yeah,
not really good.
I think the problem is that gone are the days when crap whiskey goes for good prices. Generally speaking, it's the good stuff that goes for good prices. Ironically, so yeah, it's challenging. It's challenging. We should continue this experiment.
Before we go on to the next bit of music,
go on.
Say hello to Connors and Mark if they're still there. I'm drinking this today. It's very nice. I look forward to hearing when you drink yours as well at a time that is not today. This is by Mills. It's a really very nice beer, which I spent ages waiting to turn up from the delivery depot, who lost it repeatedly and forgot where I lived. It's finally turned up today, and this is one of my 3 bottles I have of it, which I'll be saving the others for a very rainy day.
Wonderful. Well, on the subject of what we're drinking, I showed you earlier the little thing that I brought out of the fridge, and then showed you the label, which I had literally no idea. I couldn't remember.
That'll be a happy birthday from Billy.
From my 40th, which was literally last year.
Really? I didn't think I thought it was your 30th, mate.
Exactly.
Recent birthday.
Yeah. The white hair in my beard is painted in. Anyway, let's go back to the whiskey and the dram tunes. So tell us about the tune you've chosen to pair with this wonderful Clynelish.
So this is the quiet one out the lot of it, and this is by a band called Nickel Creek, who aren't around together anymore. But it is 3 incredible American players who play sort of like U-style country bluegrassy type stuff. Chris Tile in the middle is now doing Prairie Home not Prairie Companion, what's it called? The big, I can't remember what it's called, big sort of like country show they have on radio each week. He took over from Garrison Keillor a few years ago. And Sarah Watkins and Chris Watkins, who on the guitar, and I can't ever remember. I'm rubbish with names, but Sarah Watkins. She's in a super group called I'm With Her, who I love all their stuff. Incredible sort of bluegrassy type things. And her brother is a really good guitarist, and this is his song. It's a song called The 21st of May, which is all about apocalyptic preachers predicting the day of the end of the earth, and then realizing on the day of the end of the earth that it's actually not the end of the earth, and what they do then. But I'm a guitarist, as is Eddie. I'm not as good as a guitarist as Eddie. This is the sort of guitar that I would love to be able to play and cannot.
Yes, it's just a different idiom.
Yeah, I've tried. I have a banjo. I have a mandolin. I have a mandolin specifically because of Chris Tile in this band.
Yeah.
But the picking style of this is something that I lost after, and I've never put the work in because I'm significantly too lazy.
You're not lazy.
I also have stumpy hands and don't have any coordination, which is the other reason.
Well, anyway, let's listen to Nickel Creek and 21st of May.
It's time to bid this old world goodbye. Oh, glory, time to fly away. We'll meet our Savior in
30 seconds is never enough.
The Nickel Creek themselves, they started off when they were kids, 12, 13-year-olds, and they've just grown up together as this band, and then broke up, had a hiatus for years, came back together to release an album. They do loads of covers of songs that suddenly halfway through you'll go, oh, it's that. But they are three fantastic, multi-talented musicians, absolutely amazing music. I thoroughly recommend them. Despite the fact that we're now going to delve into a different side of the musical spectrum, I still go back to sort of like country and bluegrass quite a lot. So, and it's definitely one of them.
Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments here.
There are a number of. It seems to have definitely gone slightly random and off the rails. So.
Has Doug taken over the TWL account? Said Ollie Chilton. Not that I'm aware. I mean, that's a scary thought.
Yeah, it'd be definitely an interesting evening.
I'm assuming he's referring to Doug Mackay, but not.
Well, there is but one Doug in the Whisky.
There is literally. Well, yeah. No, there is only one Doug. I was trying to think of another Doug. I can think of one, but yeah, there is only one Doug. Good stuff. Okay. So let's get back on track with our questions. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think I know where this is going. In terms of, we seem to be entering into yet another phase of COVID fun and fun and games. It looks like we're going to be. Well, we've already been. What's the word? Ostracized by Europe and pretty much everyone else. And so
it's the British way.
It is. We will stand firm. Drinking beer and whiskey. But in all seriousness, does COVID affect the way that you work? And does it, will it affect you going into the future, or does it not?
Yes, basically, right at the beginning, I'm quite surprised that I'm not very good at making predictions. I normally predict things and then the things don't happen. But right at the beginning of lockdown, I was having a chat with Dom Roscoe, whiskey writer extraordinaire, and he was asking for an article he was writing about how I thought things were going to change. And my comment was, this is an acceleration, is the way I described it. All the stuff that we were doing before and things like that is now just ramping up, becoming faster and faster and faster. We're doing more of it. So will things change afterwards? Yes, we've had in the online world and in the socially distance world and doing things like this. This sort of stuff we did before. Within 2 weeks or lockdown started, I'd seen every single possible joke involving the technology of Zoom. Everything from changing your background to be the same as somebody else's background when they leave the room. So when they come back in again, the entire Zoom room is full of people sat in front of virtual backgrounds of somebody else's room. And things like that, that was within 2 weeks. And now we're getting to people who are, you're playing around now with StreamYard and doing sort of basically TV production.
Yeah.
This is something that right at the beginning of lockdown, nobody would even be considering. I'm sitting here at the moment with vaguely decent lighting, with a remote camera, a nice microphone. I need to buy a ring light so I can put it in front of my camera, because in, oh my God, 2.5 weeks time, I've got 25 talks to present over the space of a week for a virtual whiskey show.
Indeed.
Yeah. And I see this going on, and this virtualization of a lot of this stuff, I see it continuing. But also I'm working from home, and my boss, I don't know if people know the Whisky Exchange, Stig is quite old fashioned in some of his attitudes to work, and is not a big fan of working from home. He likes people to be in the office working together. And we now all work from home, and it's worked. And it's one of those wonderful things where I see a lot more of this, a lot more flexibility in working. It does mean I sit here working until midnight, but I think he likes that bit. But it's lots of changes to the way we work, and I think generally, for me anyway, for the better. I quite like the comfy chair. It's got a leopard print throw on it. It's lovely.
I have to say that, and please don't take this as anything but a compliment, but I think of all of the guests we've had on over the last, I think this is the 18th week we've been doing this, which is quite scary in itself. But I think of all of the guests that we've had on, you are by far the best equipped for lockdown.
Yeah. The way I described it to people was, I used to work in finance, and I worked through 9/11 and the July the 7th tube bombings. And I was 2 tubes behind the tube that went up in the tube bombings, and then I walked through the centre of London as a bus blew up. So when it comes to disaster recovery, and immediately we had to go and work from home, I slept with a laptop beside me for 10.5 years, and was on 24-hour call out 365 days a year. My laptop wouldn't be on holiday in my old job. I'm just used to this thing. Lockdown came in, we had a couple of days notice. I came home, bought a new monitor, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's literally the only change I made to my working environment, was to buy a new monitor. Little bits and pieces have come in since then, But here at the moment, I have a microphone that I'm talking into, which is 11 years old now, which I bought podcasting back in the ancient times when I used to be a video game podcaster. My tripod that this camera is on is from the 1970s. I had to buy a phone holder because I don't have a 1970s phone holder. But yeah, so there's lots of little bits and pieces I had to sort of bring in to sort of just apply the edges. But no, it is quite worrying. I am equipped to hide away from the entire world for up to 6 months at a time.
Yes. And let's not forget the Lego.
Ah, yes. So much Lego. And so much more of it delivered during lockdown, because, the Lego shop will quite happily ship you stuff from Denmark whenever you ask.
Yeah, it's worrying, to be honest.
Yeah, it's especially worrying because they released a new £300 Lego sets a day, which I lusting after mildly, but it comes with a free gift of Yoda's lightsaber, which I'm lusting after significantly more than the Mos Eisley Cantina that it comes with. 300 quid just for the freebie seems wrong. And I was doing a sort of test for the Whisky show earlier on today, this big event we're doing in a couple of weeks' time. And I just saw out the corner of the eye a message pop up from Ian Allen from Glen Murray, which just said, "Did you pull the trigger?" Because we have been discussing all day whether it's appropriate for us to spend £300 on a Lego Mos Eisley space station.
Oh, really? Is Ian a Lego fanatic as well?
He is also a gentleman of great taste, yes.
Good. Well, I must admit, I need to knit my time-lapse video of the Batmobile going up.
I saw some pictures of that one going, and I'm quite jealous.
It's a really nice build, I have to say. But anyway, we're probably
we should probably not think about Lego at this juncture.
Let me see if I can get this. Hold on a second. Where are we at? So, whoa! Give me 2 seconds. I need to just.
Here we go. Oh, we've got another whiskey in a bit.
We've got a what?
We've got another whiskey to talk about in a bit.
We have. I'm just because we had to make some amendments to this because it wasn't working, was it?
Wasn't working. Oh yes, I remember why. This has even got a great connection between the music and everything. And I should remember how proud I was of this one. It's the least worst of the lot.
Right, I'm just going.
Oh, sorry. Before I get I already said that the Bimber and the Carter one was because they're both about London. That's pretty poor, I will say. What was the last one? Nickel Creek. I don't actually remember what that was it. Nickel Creek is something which I really liked before I worked in the whiskey industry, and that's something from the beginning of my time in the whiskey industry, which my love for it has not decreased over time, despite the fact that it might have.
I think my glamorous assistant is bringing over the Batmobile.
Well, thank you, glamorous assistant. I saw a photograph of it, and I didn't buy it because on the photograph, the lines of the side of the car, to me, did not look right to the Batmobile that I know and love from the film. Then I saw it in real life and realised I was wrong, and the photographs were rubbish.
Look at that. Well, you twist the back and the gun turrets come up, but I don't know if you can do that. There you go.
Appropriately bouncing off as well. It's inevitable. Colleague of mine, Diego Lanza, our old and rare specialist at the Whisky Exchange, is a secret Lego fiend.
Really?
And, the day that it was announced, he's also a massive Batman fan, and ran over to my desk and was like, "Really? Have you seen it? Have you seen it?" And ended up getting it sent to Italy. And then he went over to Italy to go and see his family and to build his Batmobile, but then was grabbed to go and do something and didn't have time, so had to come home again. Had to wait 6 months to go back to Italy to go and build his Batmobile.
Oh,
the poor boy.
Yeah,
So,
I was watching the odd video here and there about it, and it seemed most people were taking a week or two to put it together. So I felt a bit gypped when I completed it just after 2 days.
Today's is pretty good. Yeah, I've got I've only really had one Lego model during lockdown. That was an A-wing, and the A-wing took me a couple of days. But that was I was working at the same time. It was I had a half day. That was the A-wing. I had a half day. It was particularly bad, and I was trying to work out a way of sort of making myself cheer up because I had properly awful time of it. And so I had a half day during which I spent the entire afternoon and evening watching Star Trek episodes on repeat on my iPad while I built an A-wing out of Lego, and that worked. Living the dream. 6 floors up, building an A-wing while watching Star Trek. If you told me when I was 13 that I'll be doing this when I'm now at an age which is older than 13, I wouldn't believe you.
Anyway, listen, we're losing people hand over fist here. So we need to get back on track. Now, tell us about your whiskey number 3.
Whiskey number 3 is a whiskey which I recently rediscovered. It's a whiskey that I had dismissed as being just a whiskey, and then I overpaid for it in a charity auction because I couldn't remember how much it was worth, and I ended up paying like a tenner too much for it. I then, unfortunately, the bottle of it I've got is now dead because it's really nice, and it might be my favourite whiskey, just normal whiskey. And I may have to buy another bottle now just to make sure of it. Anyway, it's Talisker 18. There was a charity auction, and I thought, that's going way too cheap. And actually, the answer was it was going for cost price, and I was an idiot. But it meant I had a bottle of it, and I just cracked it open because it's Talisker 18. I'm not going to keep that for a sort of rainy day. It's just a regular high end, not like cheap whiskey. But it's just so good. It's really, really nice. It tastes of Talisker, but it's a lot softer, a lot more round. And John, no, I did not go for Mos Eisley yet. I will not go for Mos Eisley yet. But we never know. But no, yes, it's Talisker 18. Literally, it's. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, I think this might be my favourite whiskey. And it's just a shock that this would be my favourite whiskey, but it is really nice. So, yes, Colin's been telling me this for years. I will allow that. Colin is right on this one occasion and all the other occasions. But yeah, it's very much. It's one of those whiskies which I've sort of gone, wow, I didn't realise it was this good. So unfortunately, as I say, that's a dead bottle. That's the sacrificial bit you give to the bin men. So,
yeah. As I remember when the Talisker 18 came out, because obviously I go back a little bit longer than yourself, and I just, you know, for years and years it was just 10-year-old, which was fine because 10-year-old was always brilliant. And then the 18-year-old came out, and I was like, wow, yes, at last. And I think the only problem with it was, and I know this sounds ridiculous, is that it was too cheap. So it kind of,
Yeah.
I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but you kind of look at it and think, oh, well, yeah, but, you know, I could spend a bit more. But no. Don't spend a bit more. Just buy it because it's amazing.
Yeah. About to say, I can't even remember how much it is these days. It's like 75 quid or something, isn't it?
I think it's still very reasonable.
I can't remember how much I pay for it. It's on the whiskyexchange.com. It says $78.95 with 2 round-bottom Talisker tumblers, free of charge. I don't need any more of those. I got way too many of them. Anyway, anyway, moving on. Enough advertising.
Well, that's kind of why I put them there. I thought it was a real tasteful photo with the additional 2.
You've got 2 glasses. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. I should have recognised our own photos. Part of my job is to try and find it when people steal them, and so I'm quite good at recognising ours from a distance. So, anyway, music.
The Weeble glass, as we call it.
I had tried one of those when I was at university still, so I filled one of those with Baileys, and a friend of mine kept on falling over sideways every time he tilted it because he got very confused by the concept of a tilting glass. He was quite drunk. So music-wise, here I have gone for probably the guy who at the moment is probably my favourite recording artist. I'm not entirely sure, but he's quite a special chap. He's a guy called Devin Townsend, and this is under the banner of the Devin Townsend Project. He is the man in the middle. He used to have a beautiful, what he referred to as a skullet, so a mullet, but with no hair on the top whatsoever. He was a singer for Steve Vai back in the day. He's absolutely amazing singer, but also an incredible guitarist and songwriter who, when Eddie presses play, you'll understand he has a certain wall of sound approach to songwriting. And people don't realize that he's quite as good a singer as he is, and that is very evident in this song, and I'll explain why in a bit. So I had to try and choose a bit where you can actually get the ridiculousness of the wall of sound and also his voice in it, so hopefully this will work.
Well, hopefully it will on many levels. Yeah.
He does these incredible roars and screams of a ridiculous extreme metal. He had a side project called Strapping Young Lad, which the entire purpose of it was to be the most extreme music you could possibly do at the time and get a record contract. And in that, he basically sings like an opera singer and then goes into growls halfway through. He's just incredible voice and layers of sound, incredible guitar solos. And he's also done an entire sort of metal opera thing about an alien who's trying to, Ziltoid, as Paul has pointed out, an alien who is trying to destroy the entire universe or trying to find coffee, depending on which. There are puppets. And there's a lot of farting. And people now take the puppets to the shows. And it's just, he is the happiest man in metal. He for years had sort of substance abuse problems and real problems of depression and everything like that. When he realized this had come out, he is now a man of pure joy. You go to a metal show and he tells awful jokes, tells everybody to be happy, then goes into these huge screaming sort of metal ballady type things, and then goes, "Hey, how are you guys?" And then just has a chat with people and he's lovely. So yes, absolutely fantastic. Much time for him. Probably my favorite recording artist at the moment. And the reason why I chose it to go with this whiskey, because this song is very much what I've rediscovered. Epic Cloud is a album for a while back, which I really liked. Kingdom is a song on it, which I'd forgotten existed. However, and this is a discussion that I was having some other people who are watching, about reaction videos on YouTube. There's this whole thing, people do a reaction video when people do stuff and you film the person reacting to it. And one of the reaction videos at the moment, the standards for singing reaction videos is you get a professional singer and you put them in front of this song. So they see this shaved-headed bald man with a ridiculous guitar sort of banging away at ridiculousness, and then suddenly he becomes an opera singer. And the number of people, you just see them go, and it's a beautiful thing to behold. So this is a song which I have rediscovered recently just from people doing reaction videos, and Talas Greateen is a dram which I have rediscovered recently and has had a reaction to myself. I'm all about the awful licks.
Well, who in their right mind isn't, to be frank?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Puns and bad links, that's me.
Well, indeed. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth question this evening before we look at your next combinations. Quite interested to hear your take on this, as I am genuinely to all the guests we've had on. Is there anybody living or dead, whether they be a historical or cultural figure, that you have always thought, well, do you know what, I'd love to share a dram with them, but never had the...
It can't be Devin Townsend because he doesn't drink anymore, unfortunately, which is but no, I'm going to go for one of the most horrifically cliched choices of this one, but for maybe a different reason to other people. So Michael Jackson, the whiskey writer, a standard answer in this situation. Yes, it'll be him. There's a couple of reasons behind this, because I'm not only a big whiskey fan, I'm also a beer fan. And while Michael is known within our community for being a big whiskey champion, the beer side of what he did was significantly greater, I would say, than what he did in the whiskey world. Whiskey world, he pioneered the concept of tasting notes, which weren't just like sweet or whatever. My first whiskey book was his, and I learned to write tasting notes from his, and then expanded on that to the ridiculousness that I write these days. Yeah, my thing is, I never got a chance to meet him. I joined the whiskey industry just too late. Lots of people, I think about people thinking, I've been around forever, and you're saying, you seem to have been around forever. I started working in whiskey in 2011, 1st of April 2011, just to make it more interesting. But no, so I've not been around for that long, and so that he is one of the people who I really regret not having met during my time in the whiskey world, because I just arrived too late in whiskey. I made up for a lot of lost time and drank a lot of whiskey in the meantime, but it's having missed him and other people in the industry from before that time. That's the thing for me, is I came in at a very weird time in the whiskey world, and I'm a generation behind where I'd want to be, and being able to share a dram with him. There's so much stuff from outside of the whiskey side of things that I'd love to ask him about, at the same time as the fact that he is one of my original inspirations in doing the thing which got me noticed in the first place, which is writing about tasting notes and flavor and that side of things. So,
well, Billy, I know this is possibly not much comfort to you, but I genuinely think the two of you would have got on absolutely tremendously. I was fortunate enough to meet him and chat with him, on a handful of occasions, and he was just, as I'm sure you've been told, just the most humble and gentle and unassuming person, unlike certain whiskey writers. And I think
possibly comment.
Yeah, and so I definitely think you guys would have just got on like a house on fire and just really, because obviously he was into his beer as well, so
I have to say, it's one of these things. Well, I do a load of stuff within the beer world, and I've been to beer conferences, and he gets mentioned in those as much as he gets mentioned in the whiskey world. And I know that a whiskey writer who was definitely not who we mentioned beforehand, Jim Murray, has commented before that he was a beer writer who wrote about whiskey rather than a whiskey writer who wrote about beer. And he was both. He did both things, but beer was the thing which he had so much of an effect on, so much of an influence on. But then he also stretched out into the whiskey world. I don't see myself ever having quite so much of an impact in beer as I do in whiskey. I drink. People ask me, I say, well, whiskey's work and beer is my hobby, but also beer is increasingly work and whiskey is also my hobby. So it sort of works out in the end. But no, as somebody who's sort of like pioneered so much of this stuff that I work with, it would be great. Yeah, and I've been told before that I probably would have got on with him, which is even more annoying. But
Yeah,
well done him for doing all the things he did. So
exactly. Which brings us nicely to your next whiskey.
Yes.
Please do tell us.
Well, this is a particularly annoying whiskey. It is the sort of, you said, so choose some whiskey, go outrageous if you want. So, so I can't really say very much about this whiskey apart from the fact it's a cask sample of a 1978 vintage Kurosawa that I tried back in 2012, something like that. I wish it was that big. I really wish it was that big. Back in that time, it was the time when the Kurosawa casks were being sold. Number One Drinks were selling off all these casks to the various different sort of buyers who were going to bottle them over the coming years. So my boss was involved as one of the main buyers, along with a couple of other guys. So we sat down one afternoon, me, Sekinder, the big boss at work, the aforementioned Forbes, and I was very much the new boy. First time I'd ever done this. So they were sat on one side of the boardroom table. I was sat on the other side of the table. And we were doing the samples in threes, and they got first pick because I was the tiny child in the room. And so they grabbed the first two of this little round of whiskies, and I grabbed the third one. I nosed it. It was amazing. The best, probably the memory is now greater than it was, but but still the best whiskey I've ever nosed. It smelled amazing. I went, guys, this is really good. And I went, Billy, we got some great whiskies here as well, but you can try these in a bit. We'll try yours in not quite dismissing me, but I was very much hadn't had the opportunity to try anything like this before. I went, no, this is really good. Tasted it and kept going a lot. Eventually they tried it and agreed that it was absolutely fantastic. It was the best whiskey we tried out of this chunk in this little flight we'd just been putting together. Then we looked at the sheet and realized the cask had broken and it had leaked, and there were tens of bottles left in it. However, the price of the cask had not been reduced very much. And so we worked it out, and I think at the time we would have had to have sold these bottles of Kurosawa in 2012, 2013, something like maybe £1,500 for a bottle. So at that time, that was like 7, 8, 9, 10 times the price you could have got for them. You said there's no point. It's going to go up in price, but there's hardly any left. Could we vat it? So we tried vatting these samples together to see if we could make something good out of it. And it's not going together well, so we have to leave it. I don't know if that cask has ever been bottled, but to this day, a 1978 vintage bourbon cask Kurosawa, the most unobtainium of unobtainium whiskies that you will never ever be able to get. It was. So it sits in the back of my brain as the whiskey that got away. When we look at it now, bottles of Kurosawa are going for sort of like 15, 18, 20,000 pounds a bottle, and they're sitting there going, if only we had waited. But yeah.
So just a question here from Yuha. Were you a whiskey drinker before you started working at TWE?
Oh yeah, very much so. I say I was a computer programmer. I left university in 2000 and worked for 10.5 years in the city. I used to work in the bar at university, and one Sunday night we were sat down by my whiskey origin story, which is also available to read on the Whiskey Lounge blog if you do a search in times. But no, it's a guy called Eric, who I believe is a motivational speaker in California now, who was the union president, and he was running the bar that night, and he said, you need to know about whiskey. We're going to teach you all about whiskey. And he went through the Diageo classic malts and basically spoke rubbish about them. Had no idea what he was talking about. And I got to Talisker and Lagavulin at the end, and I went, these are stunning. I absolutely love these. And that was Christmas 1998, I think. 96, 97. No, 97. Christmas 1997. During my second year at university, I was staying in London over Christmas and not going to see the family. And so instead of buying my family presents, I bought a bottle of Talisker and a bottle of Lagavulin and drank them over Christmas. And my descent into whiskey has gone from there. I used to fly to America quite a lot, and I'd buy a bottle of whiskey on the way out, bottle of whiskey on the way back, which I discovered put me over my allowance. But anyway, that's fine. So yeah, I stocked up on whiskey from duty free, and then was given a Michael Jackson book in probably like 2000 for Christmas because my family knew I liked whiskey, and it all went downhill from there until I quit my quite lucrative job working as a computer programmer in the City of London in finance to go and become a professional writer, a job which is well known for raking in vast quantities of cash.
Who told you that, Billy?
No one. It was in my brain, and it was wrong.
Oh, go on, blame someone for crying out.
That's quite impressive, actually. When I had my meeting with Sekinder to try and work out if I was going to take my job, he said, "How much do you earn at the moment?" I said, "That has no bearing on this. You will not pay me the same amount of money I currently get paid. And me telling you that is not going to help you in any way, shape, or form." He went, "Okay, I'll pay you this." And within the tiniest margin, he chose the amount of money I needed to live on. He's a cunning man, that one. He snared me. So,
well, yes, it has been said.
no, I was definitely a whiskey drinker beforehand. I'm not only a whiskey drinker, I'm a fan of all things, and I keep on waving around these bottles I got down here at the moment. I'm in the process of training to be an Awamori ambassador from Japanese spirit from Okinawa. So I currently got a stash of 7 bottles of interesting unaged, well, non-oak aged, so rested spirit of various different types, all made from rice and koji and distilled in weird stills. And
you know how you were saying you were descending into whiskey. Do you feel like you're descending further and further?
Oh, it's getting my. I've been obsessed with flavor for my entire life. I had my tonsils out when I was 6, and it changed my sense of taste entirely. And all the things I didn't really care about food beforehand, and I was quite a skinny kid. And when I had my tonsils out, the joke was the obstruction was removed, and I could put food down my face faster. But it also changed my perception of flavor, and so I became very picky about what I ate and became interested in pulling apart flavor. So my entire life has been an obsession with flavor. And spirits are often a concentration of flavor in a way that you just don't get in other places. So I'm drinking at the moment weird sour beer, which is massively intense in flavor and just over the top. But with practice, you can pull apart those flavors. And now onto Awamori, and we've got some mezcal down here as well, and all that sort of thing. This is just my stash of stuff I need for tastings and for training classes I'm actually doing. I'm being taught about this at the moment. So yeah, it's just descent is one thing. Just descent into a flavor obsession. It's food as well, which you can tell I'm a slender gentleman, and it's not thanks to my love of eating things. So,
well, I'm a fine one to talk, to be frank. So anyway, let's talk about your accompanying tunes.
Oh, what's my tune for this one? Oh, yes. So this is a band who this is the extreme end of the glorious music for the evening. This is a band that me and my mate Adam, who now lives over in the US, former computer programmer turned sales manager for a brewery. He and I have a similar career path. One of my old flatmates from university. We used to go see lots and lots of metal gigs, and there's this band who we saw supporting a band called, I think they're called Dry Kill Logic at the time. They might have been, not sure whether that was before or after they changed their name. I think that was Dry Kill Logic. Anyway, and they were the most extreme sounding band I've heard in a long time. And we stood there trying to find a tune, and we just couldn't find a tune. And after 2 or 3 songs, we suddenly went, "Oh, there it is." It's like when you hear extreme jazz, and all of a sudden you suddenly go, "Oh, there's the tune. I understand what's going on." It's a band called Sixth, who pretty much invented a style of music called gent, because it goes gent, 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 gent a lot. And they broke up before the name gent was coined. Them and Meshuggah are the two. This song's called Sense of the Obscene, partly because I chose it because I like the song, and 2, because this Kurosawa 1978, which I will never try again, smelled fantastic. It is the scent of the obscene, so to speak. There we go. That's even worse. But yeah, so this band is sort of scary, scary musicians, and there's a little bit of screaming and strange noises, and it's one of those ones where it's probably quite loud, and yes. There's not that much more I can say, but you have to hear it really to understand what's going on.
Okay. Well, let's hope it translates. So anyway, let's try.
You see where that's going. So, yeah, I think my favourite gig I went to see of theirs was in the Barfly in Camden, and I'd just been trying to have a chat with Mikey, the singer who you didn't hear stream. That's Justin. He's the calm singer, whereas Mikey's the guy with dreads who would randomly break into poetry halfway through a gig. And while they played sort of like, weird sort of songs in the background, he'd just like intone weird, morbid poetry at people. Yep, a strange man. So I was trying to have a chat with him at the back of this incredibly loud club, sort of trying to shout through his dreads. Had a bit of a chat, went to the loo, and was pinned against the wall by their manager of the time, who said, "Stop trying to steal my band." And I said, "I'm not trying to steal your band." He says, "Yes, you are. I've seen you talking to my band." And I was accused by him of basically being a rival manager who was trying to steal his most lucrative band partnership he had. I was trying to explain, I'm a computer programmer. I'm trying to have a wee. And that didn't go down well. So but then I went out again, and the band then went on the stage, and they were fantastic. So it was all good. But no, they reformed a little while ago, and I went to see them. And they said, "How many of you seen us before?" And half the audience put their hands up. And they said, "How many of you did not know we existed before we broke up?" And the other half of the audience put their hands up. They've defined a style of music, and they broke up before that style of music became popular. It's right. Amazing. No, but it's not necessarily the easiest of listens, but their later albums get a little bit less quite so scary. Yes. You know what, Connors? I've not said it before, but I feel every time you and I have a chat, I can just hear the smack of strange jazz in the background of my brain. So yes,
I think that speaks volumes for Connors particularly. And here's another one. There's my mother-in-law chiming in.
Yeah. No, Sixth is. I think they're still around still, but no, the guitarists, Pin and Dan Ford is a respected guitar teacher. So if you ever want to learn how to play absolutely obscene guitar of any kind whatsoever, his guitar teacher out there and ready to teach whenever you wish.
He's ready and willing. Indeed.
He also looks significantly less scary than the rest of them. He has a nice haircut and everything like that, rather than having a shaved head or ridiculous dreads. So.
He's almost respectable, but not quite.
He looks very respectable,
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite strange when you see the rest of them. So there's this guy that's standing there going, "Hello, I'm a guitar teacher."
But is that by London standards or rest of the world?
You get away with being a little bit racy in New York. So.
Well, yes, indeed. Okay, well let's move on to the final question, Billy, which is in terms of innovation and evolution of. Let's stick to whiskey, because I know you're involved in lots and lots of other things, but let's try and stick to whiskey. Is there anything that you've seen from anyone, or a trend, or whatever you want to call it, coming down the track which you're quite excited by? I know you're quite excitable generally, but Oh, well caught.
The thing which I find amusing about this one, when you sent over, so I said, "Oh yeah, have a think about this." I've been asking this question of everybody because for the Whisky Show this year, I've been doing lots of recording of interviews with people for our virtual show guide. So I'm like 10 interviews down now. But our show theme is whiskey, an ever-changing world. And so we're saying, what do you think is the future of whiskey? So I've been trying to think this myself. And there's two parts to this. Fortunately, went down the thing I'm excited about, because I've been asking people, and everybody's been telling me what they would hope would happen and what they think probably will happen. And for most people I've spoken to, there's been a divergence there. The thing I'm really excited about, the thing I'm not excited about, is people just doing stupid things with casks, which seems to be the thing at the moment. You know, go and find yourself a wet wine cask, put whiskey into it, put it into a bottle, and a load of people love it. And well done to them. I'm really pleased that people like that sort of whiskey. It's not for me. The whiskey that is for me is the interview I did the other day. I had a chat with Phil and Simon Thompson up at Dornoch, and the stuff they're doing is absolutely stupid. It is commercially borderline unviable, but they're experimenting and trying to create flavor, and the things they are doing are focused around that creating flavor. And I've said, you know, my obsession is flavor. I want things to taste nice. I want to know what things taste like. And they are looking into where those flavors come from, how to generate those flavors. But at the same time as saying, oh, I don't care how much it costs for us to create them, within reason. But yeah, so playing and experimenting to find almost like lost knowledge and pinning down old distillery workers and saying, how did you do this? How did you make these things happen? But for me, the exciting bit is the next bit, which is when other people try and do the same thing and try and use some of the same knowledge and try and create the same flavors of whiskey they are and create this new style, old style whiskey, which people are already trying to do. Because whiskey's great. Whiskey's getting better all the time. There's lots of great things in there, but there's nothing really new. When people talk about innovation, and the innovation is we put some stuff in a different cask, even if it is a mezcal cask, innovation. I've tried some mezcal cask whiskey and it was all right. So it's not dissing it. It's just, it's not really innovating to put stuff into a different type of wooden thing. But literally starting at the basis of every component of the way you make it and play with it to understand it, and breaking down that and letting us understand more how that works, and then applying that across other distilleries as well. It's understanding this approach. You know, I talk about earlier about how Ollie and I try and destroy all the romance in whiskey. You know, I don't care so much about, oh yes, the lever is turned by a person. I want to know why that person turns the lever at that time. That's the thing which interests me. What is the reason why that person doing that is better than a machine telling you that? Understanding that will help us make better whiskey. And that's the thing which I find exciting, is that people are now looking into that properly rather than just trying to make things more efficient. There you go. You got an actual opinion of rantage out of me there. Oh, wow. I didn't know I had that in me.
Well, have we not been having that all evening?
Okay, that's right then. No,
it's interesting.
So many old-fashioned things, and you, around you as well. You know, you and I have both tried these incredible old-style whiskies and things like that. Stuff that we picked up, stuff that friends of ours have sort of shared.
Yeah,
and there is a difference. And modern whiskey is great. Older whiskey is also great in different ways. It's trying to understand and see what we can bring back of that. I wrote an article ages ago. Josh Feldman, American whiskey writer. He doesn't write anywhere near as much anymore. Josh, if you ever see this, please write more things again. I wrote an article explaining that the reason why Johnny Walker Red Label doesn't taste the way it does now as it did then, back in the olden days, is because it would cost too much now. And you look at prices and the way things have changed, where the drinking market's changed, corners are cut, prices are squeezed because they need to be. People's palates change, things change, but it's people who are now looking back and saying, how can we bring those back in again? And so it's reinvention of old things, rediscovery, at the same time as not losing what we've got at the moment, because what we've got at the moment is still great.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me, as what flashes up on the screen there, frighteningly, is, and I was asking Davil from the Lakes this a few weeks ago, is, you know, how much it would be nice to see this almost backward thinking, you know, thinking from the ground up. You know, what are we doing here? Can we change things around a bit? Whether that will actually reflect in the wider whiskey industry, and whether like the Dornoch guys, like the Lakes, and like a few others who are really, you know, having fun essentially, and just trying to mix things up a bit. Whether or not that will actually, you know, bleed down into the wider industry, and people in the bigger companies will say, well, do you know what? Actually, there's some merit in doing that, and let's give that a go. I think that's possibly an even more interesting question.
I think there will be definitely some transfer. It's one of those ones where if the big companies focus a lot on efficiency at the moment and things like that, which is entirely understandable. That if you're making things in bulk, that's what you do. But it's one of those ones where if the processes are discovered and decoded and understood, they can make those tweaks without breaking efficiency as well. I don't want to lose those new things we've got in the science of the process. That's when we get that interesting sort of thing. I'm off to go and see Deval tomorrow. I'm off to the Lake District for my first trip away from home in 6 months.
Nice.
Apart from going to the IWSC down in Surrey, which doesn't really count because my family's down there. I went to see my dad for a weekend. I went to go and do some judging of Baijiu. But no, so I'm off to the lakes tomorrow. And Deval's got a very interesting approach because he goes the other way around. So I'm talking about looking at the underlying processes and then seeing how those change and then using that to build whiskies. His approach is to say, I know exactly in my head what I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the flavors I want to create. I know the end point. Now let's work backwards through every step of the process and work out how to add the thing. And he explained this to me, and I was just like, okay, that is a genuinely different way of looking at things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The final result sometimes has come out of being sort of like sherry heavy and things like that. But he's not just saying, I know what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the levers I could pull to manipulate that at the moment. So he's one of those people who will be able to sit there and go, oh, you found that. I can use that at this point to make this appear at the end. And so, I'm really intrigued and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, just so I have a chance to, with a load of other people, pick his brain and understand how he puts stuff together. Because he has impressed me with his attitude to the way he makes whiskey, and it's really intriguing and something I want to learn more about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a stash of bloody Lakes whiskey here in my little stuff you should definitely write tasting notes about, which I've still not got around to. I'm a very bad person. It's thoroughly interesting stuff. But anyway, back to your Jones and Drams. Jones.
Tell us about your final dram, Billy, please.
Well, I could have actually grabbed a bottle from next door of this because I have a number of them knocking around still, but this is the one we were talking about earlier. So my next one is a bottle of Lefroy 10-year-old. There you go. But not any old Lefroy 10-year-old. Very specifically, actually, this one looks to be a little slightly too, about 6 months to a year too old compared to the one I'm thinking of in my head. But basically, this is the point where it gets very geeky. And again, this goes back to our colleague, Mr. Forbes. After a Whiskey Lounge festival in Brighton, Tim used to bring along a bottle of whiskey every time. And he'd been picking up these bottles of Lefroy 10-year-old. When the Royal Warrant appears on the front, that's when they seem to drop in value at the time. Lefroy got their Royal Warrant in 1994. When they first got it, it appeared on the back of the bottle. Then shortly afterwards, 95-ish, it appeared on the front. And these bottles were 43. They dropped to 40. They're basically just the Lefroy bottles that look like Lefroy bottles until the early 2000s. And, they're not particularly interesting, apart from the fact that back in the 1980s, the Lefroy's peating was quite variable. And so the whiskey's quite variable. And some of it is crackingly fruity, absolutely stunning. And so this bottle that Tim opened after the Brighton Festival, we finished working, packed up down all the stuff, and tried it, and it was an absolute fruit bomb. It tastes like drinking passion fruit juice. It was stunning. And there were 4 of us on the train back up to London, and we smashed the bottle between us because it was just so good. We're just sitting there chatting away and sort of drinking this stuff, and we went, we seem to have drunk a large amount of whiskey at this point. It wasn't a quarter bottle each because, the Whiskey Lounge gang had a go at it down in Brighton as well. But it was one of those ones where you just drank it without realizing. And so Tim and I, between us, sort of like divided up auctions from then onwards and just bought loads of it. Tim gave me a bottle for my 40th of the Lefroy 10-year-old from the 1990s, and that's still in my stash. I've only got a few left, but they're whiskeys that I open and drink. They're just things which I absolutely love, and which you just, again, talk about the styles of whiskey that you just don't get anymore. They still have whiskey like that in their warehouses. I asked John Campbell, distillery manager, about it ages ago, and he sort of said, "Oh yeah, we still got some of that. We use it in some of our vattings and things like that." I went to a tasting with him at the Isle of Festival, and the random dram he had chosen as a sort of car sample was the fruitiest Lefroy I'd ever tried. And he just said to the room, "We still have these, don't worry."
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just Lefroy. Back then, though, it was just so variable. The peating was just all over the place. You didn't know entirely what you're going to get. But every now and again, a bottle of it, rather than tasting like nice Lefroy, just tastes like fruit juice. And so smoky fruit juice, but still fruit juice. I've got a few next door. Tim Forbes has somewhere a spreadsheet showing the combinations of the serial numbers of the neck label, the back label, and the front label, which they just had boxes of around and just slapped them on in whatever order they had. But Tim, has these mysterious incantations of, if it's these three numbers, it will be fruity. Then you open a bottle and it's not. So you can barely ever tell. There's a few rules that Tim found over time. They could be vaguely certain, but no. So I've got 3 or 4 bottles next door, which are entirely random. I don't know what they're going to be like, but I'm really hoping they're going to be fruit bombs.
Yes. Well,
that's why I like this whiskey.
Yeah. Well, if you can hold on to those for a wee while.
Until such a time as you're around, Eddie, I understand, yes.
Good. Where am I? I'm trying to. There we go. So we're back to
music. So this was just because I needed to choose this piece of music. I don't really have any particular reason outside of the fact that I really like it. This is by a band who people might have heard of called Tool. They appeared when I first learned of them when I was at university. They've been around for a while. And as I was leaving university, I sort of went, these guys are great. I've got one more album out of them before they just went silent. Never broke up. There were legal issues. They went off and did other things, and like that, but there was just no new music for like 15 some years. And then last year, they released a new album. And I went, along with Paul Dempsey, who was around earlier on, Ian Allen from Glen Murray, who was mentioned earlier on. We went to Berlin to go and see them. And we sat in the wrong seats because we read the tickets wrong. And we were moved on by security and moved to our proper seats, which were, it's a stadium. So stage is here and the seats do this. Our seats were here. We were, I literally put my arm over the railing by the stage. And we saw them at that angle. It was absolutely stunning, incredible music. And this is a song off their new album, a song called Pneuma. And the reason why it's this one of all of them is because Danny Carey, the drummer, is an incredible drummer. I cannot play drums. I played rock band drums for a long time. I bought myself a electric kit. I then sold my electric kit because 1, I was crap, and 2, I didn't have any space in my flat, mainly because I was crap. But he's an incredible drummer. And again, talking about those reaction videos I mentioned earlier on, my favorite one to this one is the guy who was doing a drum teacher just looked at it and started it and sort of stopped it after a couple of minutes and went, yeah, I'm not equipped to comment on this outside of saying how impressed I am. And it's just a level above when it comes to skill of drumming and the effortlessness that he puts into it when you actually watch it. There's a video of him playing this live. And of all the songs on the album, I like all of them. It's a fantastic album. But this one, because I've seen the drummer, the skill of the drums in it. I keep on thinking I could play the guitar part. I can't play the guitar part. But the drums are one of those things which is such a level of skill beyond what I have that, this really impresses me.
I was sorry to interrupt, Billy. But I was trying to work out the time signature. Actually, it's really, really, really out there.
Never try and understand a tool's time signature. This actual song, there's after an intro of just some sort of like quite fast tabla things. It just goes dan 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 dan, so that sort of thing. But with the other hand, so he's just tapping on a sort of like a simulated tabla, but he just does just a different rhythm entirely. So a complicated rhythm with one hand, but an entirely different time signature, entirely different rhythm, just tapped, just 1 1 1 1 1. And you listen to it and you sort of go, oh, that must be easy. And you try and do it like with a couple of pens on a table and you realize there's no chance. Full 4-limb independence, but we have to play a different rhythm with each limb at the same time. It's a skill. And this is a very, for Danny Carey especially, the drummer, this is a showcase of his skills all the way through. And if you search for Pneuma Danny Carey on YouTube, you'll find the live video, and it's just a drum cam showing him, and it is stunning.
But beyond even that, just listen to the song from the beginning.
Oh, the song, the entire album. There's two versions. So there's a CD version which is missing interstitial tracks, and then there's the full MP3 version, which has got these extra little sort of tracks in between. I generally listen to the CD version because they're long songs and they're all punchy, and the interstitial bits are just like a little bit. They're not quite so good, in my opinion. But when you listen to the whole thing as an experience, it's amazing. No, the vocals are amazing. Maynard, the singer, is a nutter. He generally stands at the back of the stage without any lights on him, on a podium, without a shirt, and with a mohawk wig.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's what he does. And the band is led by a guitarist and a bassist at the front. And the bassist, that boy moves. So yeah. And Danny Carey, the drummer, is just this gigantic man mountain in a basketball shirt who just beats the crap out of drums in the most incredible way.
Right. Well, let's have a. You have us frothing now, so let's.
I built it up too much.
Yeah, I think even just trying to nod along to it is a challenge.
I'm trying to look. I went through this track for about an hour, trying to find a 30-second snippet that showed what I wanted to show of it, and it's one of those ones where you need about a minute and a half to show the build and the transition between the various sections and the time signature. It's just, yeah, it's a thing of absolute wonder. So
I think that the late great Ginger Baker would appreciate that, actually.
Oh yeah, it is when it comes to the rhythm side of things, it is silly in exactly the right way.
Would he be up for a fight? Because I think Ginger Baker would have been up for it.
Danny Carey seems to be a very much more on. He tries to live on a different plane somewhat. Although I'm not entirely certain, because the people of Tool, you're never entirely certain when they're just taking the piss.
I think, yeah. Anyway, listen, it's been an absolute delight to have you on, and I really appreciate you coming on this evening, Billy. Just to wrap things up, if you could narrow down to one of these drams and one of these tunes, what would you go for?
It's a difficult one because I've been drinking the Bimber. It's now turned into a glass full of Snickers. It's like drinking liquefied Snickers at this point. It's absolutely beautiful. But no, it would have to be that Klein Leash 78. While it has so much of that Kurosawa thing, as well as touching on all the other bits and pieces of all the other drams. That 78 Klein Leash is not so the 82 Klein Leash. There's a reason why I have one bottle left and I've not opened it. It's just waiting for a special occasion because it's a thing I'll never find again.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to one song, it might actually be the one which is probably the least likely. It might be Back to Nickel Creek. Of all the different bands today, apart from Carter, which I've been coming back to for a long, long time, Nickel Creek are one of those bands who, no matter what mood I'm in, whether I, happy, sad, angry, entirely not caring about the universe, doesn't matter. I can listen to their music and absolutely love it. As I say, I own a mandolin and I own a banjo, and I attempted to become a flat picking guitar person and failed repeatedly over the past 20 years, and I blame them.
And if you, obviously we're going to offer you the choice of a book, apart from Michael Jackson's Malt Whisky Companion, obviously, and a luxury for your desert island, what would you go for?
Well, I was thinking about the book. You see, I've got a fantastic book about tonic water, which I really was thinking it's an award-winning. And the book thing's a difficult one because you can't see it, just literally there, out of shot. I've got a bookshelf which I've been rapidly filling with more and more booze books over the last over lockdown. I've also got a bed here which is entirely covered in booze books where I can't fit on the bookshelf. In a way, the book I would want to go for is actually not traditionally a booze book. It's just one that I find endlessly fascinating and really get. It's McGee on Food on Cooking. It's about flavor again. You know, Harold McGee is this incredible. I'm assuming he's a food scientist now officially rather than wherever he was beforehand. I'm not even sure if he started out as a food scientist, but it's a book which explains the science of cooking, of food, and of flavor in a way that inspired me when I got it, 15 years ago, to really dig into that. And it's about this thick. The second edition is a good sort of 3 inches thick. I sat down on Christmas Day when I got it, and I read like a third of it, and people got annoyed that I wouldn't talk to them. I was saying, look, this bit's really interesting. It's about carrots, and people would just leave me alone. But no, it is one of those ones that really, it's so applicable outside of food as well. It's just an understanding of how these things fit together, and also it's a really big book, so I could use it as a weapon. So
always useful on a desert island.
Exactly,
Yeah.
stock full of pennies. Really big book. You
never know who you're going to run into.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to luxury, I'm not very good at this whole luxury thing. I don't really get. It's one of these glorious things of privilege that I don't really understand what counts as a luxury anymore. I keep on trying to explain to people that whiskey's a luxury, and they laugh at me, and then I go, "Well, yeah, never mind. You're not quite in the real world anymore." Whiskey's a necessity. No, it's not. It's literally the definition of a luxury good. Go look up what a luxury good is on Wikipedia. A really good pillow. I've moved on because I just recently bought a new mattress, and my mattress beforehand had a Billy-shaped hole in it. And I have a little sleep monitor thing on my phone, and I noticed over the space of a year the quality of sleep on the little sort of whirly dial went from about 90% and just did this constantly. And about 2-3 months ago, it hit about 40%, and I could not sleep. It was awful and painful and all that sort of thing, and I just didn't function as a human being. And I got a new mattress, and it has almost changed my life. And the next bit, though, is I've got a bit of a crick neck, so I think a really good pillow, because I can sleep pretty much anywhere. I think it was the really good pillow was the bit I was missing. So, for the sake of a night's sleep on my desert island, I can bury myself in the sand. But if I have a really good pillow, then I suspect I'll have a lovely night's sleep.
Yeah.
And also, I snore like an absolute git. So if I don't have a really good pillow, it's bad for anybody else on the island.
Listen, you're a mere disciple in terms of snoring.
I would say I've heard, but I've heard. So
You have heard.
Yeah, from a different building, I think. So
I'm saying nothing. I have no leg to stand on. Well, listen, Billy, it has been wonderful. I'm gonna call time because I think the good folks at home need to go to bed. So
I'm up early for an early train to the Lake District. So yes, I
absolutely
understand.
I'm going to play you out with some lilting tones. And I will say, the Abbot, it's been a pleasure. And good night. And good night, everyone, and take care.